Hi, so we have some viewers joining us today. So we're not going to start our live session Q&A until 10 o'clock, but we're just opening it up early just so that we can get some viewers in and have enough time for our orientation assistants to log in, and that way we can have another one join me today on our video, and then we'll have a couple more joining in the comments just so that they can facilitate that. So please hold your questions until 10 o'clock. This way we can just get our viewers starting to come in. And waiting for our other orientation assistants to join us. So if you're just now joining us, thank you for joining us on our live session today. We are gonna wait until 10 o'clock to start taking questions and answering those, but we're just giving time for our viewers to come in and wait until 10 o'clock. And we're also waiting for some of our orientation assistants to join us so that way we can have multiple people answering all of your questions today. Hi to all of our viewers today. So my name is Lauren, and I'm with the Office of Student Transitions, and I am an orientation assistant this year. We're still waiting on some of our orientation assistants to try and join our live chat. It's not letting us add anyone at the moment, so we're gonna give that a couple of minutes. But we appreciate all of your patience this morning with the orientation registration and with our live video. We will address that in just a couple of minutes, but thank you for being patient with us.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm glad I was able to join.
Me too. Had some technical difficulties this morning. All right. So we will go ahead and get started this morning. So before we start, hi and welcome to East Carolina University, our first Q&R session that is live on Facebook right now. And it is going to be a part of our new virtual student orientation, which is kind of exciting. We've never done it this way, so we're very excited to have you here today and working with us through all of that. And then my name is Lauren, and I am an orientation assistant this summer. So thank you for joining us today. Ashley, would you like to introduce yourself?
My name is Ashley Cook. I am a senior. This is my third year doing orientation, so I'm here, and both Lauren and I are prepared for your questions and ready to help in any way we can.
Yes, and like Ashley said, we are here answering some of your questions today. And then we do have some orientation assistants in the comments. Saria and Liz will both be in the comments today, helping facilitate some of those questions in case we get a lot of them and happen to read over them. But I also just wanted to point out that today we are going to be answering some questions, especially more towards our students today, and it will be recorded and archived and available after the session has ended. And then in order to make sure that we're following our accessibility guidelines, the archived recorded session will be closed captioned. And if further accommodations are required, please contact the Office of Disability. All right. And then before we jump right into your questions, thank you all for joining our pirate family. We're so excited that everyone wanted to jump on the orientation registration right at 8 a.m. However, we are experiencing some technical difficulties with that, so please be patient with us as we're trying to figure that out. And then if you have any questions pertaining to first year student life or the first year experience in general, we'll be more than happy to answer those. But we just wanted to address that we are aware of the registration and Canvas situation this morning, but we should have that up and running sometime today. So just keep an eye out.
Yes, and just to repeat and stress the importance of what Lauren said, yes, you should still be able to pay for orientation, but the issue is still trying to be resolved. The office is working as hard as they can. This is a new situation that we have been thrown into, and we are trying to make it work, and we are doing the best we can to make all of this work.
And we actually cut off the feature letting you allow are letting you register for orientation right now. So if it says that orientation is not available at this time, we turn that feature off just because we are experiencing some of the issues with that in Canvas. So you should receive an email, and we will post about that when it is up and running again.
All right, let's see.
So it says, where do we go to pay for orientation? So during the registration process is when you will be able to pay for it. However, we did turn off the feature to register this morning while we're fixing that issue.
All right. I'm not sure if y'all can hear my family, but they are kind of loud today, so let me close the door so I make sure I have all the attention. All right, sorry. Okay, so I'm looking at some of the comments that are going on here, and it says, so registration won't open tomorrow. That is still yet to be determined. It is a rapidly evolving situation, as we like to say, and we're trying to figure it out. We are trying to make sure that everyone is able to register for orientation, because you do have to complete orientation before you can register for classes. So we're trying to get everything working the best we can.
And then I also saw a comment from Lisa McManus that says orientation is down, but when our son tries to log into Canvas, there isn't even an account associated with the student email. What should we do? So that is actually one of the issues that they're trying to fix right now. So it is being addressed. They should get an email when it is all fixed, and we will advertise that as well.
All right, let's see. So we had a question that says, whenever I try to register for orientation, it says that there are no sessions available. So that is one of the things that we are trying to fix. It should be that your student is able to log in using their entire student email, including the @students.ec.edu at the end, and then their password that they use when they log into Pirate Port. And then a session should pop up. So that is one of the problems that we are trying our best to solve and fix.
And then a question from, it looks like Addie Martin. I'm sorry if I said your name wrong, but where will it be posted when it's up and running? So we should post it on all of our social media accounts for the Office of Transitions. So on our Facebook page right here, and then our Instagram, ECU Transitions, and all of our orientation assistants have personal orientation Instagram, so we'll post it there as well so the students can see.
All right. Trying to find a way to see all of the comments while I am on. What we can do. Okay, so go to that account. I guess everyone's. Yes. Oh, they just disappeared. When do we get a Canvas account? So you don't have to sign up for a Canvas account. You should just automatically have one. And that's the problem we're addressing right now, is that you do not have an account when you should. So I know that the office is working on that.
And then I did see a couple questions. The most recent one from a Brandy Katz about how will the fall semester look due to social distancing. So all of the details have not been worked out yet. ECU has put together some task force in every department to be able to kind of facilitate that change into our university. But as far as classes go, we have not been. The ECU staff has been putting together the schedule where some of your classes will be in the first 8-week block and some of them will be in the second week block, and then some may transition to online if there are too many students in them, but you should be able to see that change reflected when you go to register for classes. However, you won't be able to register for classes until we like to give at least 24 hours after you have completed the orientation online?
That is a good question, Michelle. Will there still be parent weekend? I sure hope so. The plan is to still have parent weekend, but a lot of that is just going to adjust based on what rules and laws have been and what restrictions we have. So we will try. I know that every office is going to do their best to make sure that we have family weekend, and yes, parents should be able to attend homecoming. It is just the fact of having to get a ticket, and that is something your student can approach, and you can also get from the ECU athletics ticket office.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then going back to second part to that question about fall classes. So they're not all going to be online. They will only be moved online if it is necessary, just to make sure that everyone is staying healthy and social distancing. But the main reason they're doing the 8-week block schedule is so that we can remain in class and not have to transition to online. But in the event that we do have to switch online, if there is a second outbreak or anything like that, that is why they split it up into the 8-week blocks. So that way we're not having a full 16-hour load completely online again, like some returning students had to do last semester. So just how that'll work, the first 8-week block is going to go from August 10th. Yes, the first day of class will be on August 10th, and that will run until September 29th. That is when the first semester finals will end. And then the second 8-week block classes will begin on August 1st. I believe that's a Thursday. And then they will end, finals will end for the second 8-week block the day before Thanksgiving. So that will be a Wednesday, but this is just so if you are traveling for Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, any of the holidays at the end of the year, transitioning into the new year, that way we aren't spreading any virus and we're keeping all of our students healthy.
All right, let's see. Try to look through these. All right, let's see. All right, so answer the LinkedIn question.
Just addressing Grace Olson had a question about when are we going to find out which building our dorms are in. So you will get your residence hall assignments. I believe it's late June to mid-July. That'll be a nice range for when you'll get an email finding out which residence hall you'll be in, and your roommate's information. You'll get their contact information so you can go ahead and reach out to them as well.
And then answering Kat Harris, how will dining halls work with social distancing? When we talked to dining, they said that they will be spacing out all of the tables in the dining halls. Everything that can be served to you will be served to you. Everything will be made behind the counter with people wearing masks and gloves in order to protect us to the best of their abilities. And tables that would typically made for 6 to 8 people may have just 2 people sitting at it on each end. And to make sure that social distancing is followed, I know that dining is going to do everything they can to follow the rules and make social distancing easier in the dining halls.
And not only in the dining halls, but they will make this transition in our other eateries, kind of like in our main student center where we have our Raising Cane's, Panda Express, and a couple other dining locations. They're going to be taking out some chairs and monitoring that so that way people aren't sitting too close to one another. And same in Wright Plaza, that area where we have like Einstein Bagels, a Starbucks, and things like that. And then I did see a question that from Heather Lee. It said, what's the date for parent weekend and homecoming? So right now, family weekend is going to be on September 19th. We're going to be playing Norfolk State. So that'll be our family weekend. And then homecoming is going to be on October 17th, and we're going to be playing Navy.
All right, we had a question of how will social distancing work from our roommates in our dorms? And since we are still, it disappeared. Since we are close together, since the dorms are smaller. So in your residence hall room with your roommate, you will just, Campus Living will send out suggestions on how they think it would be best for you to social distance in your room. But it will be something where your roommate now does become part of like your familiar unit, and they'll become your family now. So it's something where you're going to kind of get comfortable with your roommate. And I mean, you can set your beds as far apart as they can go. You can set your desks apart as far as they can go. But it's going to be one of those things where your roommate becomes your family, and you kind of get used to sharing a space with them. All right. Do we have any other?
I'm scrolling through the comments to see common questions.
Yep. Okay. If you would like more specifics on social distancing in the residence hall, you can always contact Campus Living, and they are going to be the ones that know the most about this, and they'll be happy to give you any information they can.
Kayla Peters said, how do we know what classes will be in the first block versus the second block? So when you go to sign up for your classes, which will be 24 hours or within 24 hours after completing online orientation, well, first you'll visit the peer website, and it will tell you which classes you need to sign up for, and you can always contact your advisor with that as well. So make sure when you register for orientation, you're putting in your major that you are currently interested in, so that way it'll pair you with the correct academic advisor, and you can get that information on courses. But when you do go to register for classes, it'll have the dates for each class. So August 10th through September 29th is the first 8 weeks, and then October 1st through the Wednesday before Thanksgiving will be the second 8 weeks. I believe that's November 25th, but I'm not sure. Is that right, Ashley? Okay.
Yep. Kat Harris asked, will masks be required? As Lauren said earlier, we have many task force at ECU trying to figure out how it's going to be best for us all to return to school and safely and as safely as possible. So that's something that's still in the rapidly evolving situation. And as soon as we hear anything from these task force, I know that each orientation assistant and the ECU transition page will try their very best to let you know as soon as we know anything for certain. But we don't want to speak on something we don't know 100% yet.
And then a question from Brandy Caps about move-in days. So I'm going to try and explain it as simple as possible for you. It might be kind of a lengthy answer. But first off, your roommate assignments and residence hall assignments will go out in late July or late June, early July, and they'll go to your student ECU email account. And then, so there are two different types of move-ins. So the first one is going to be the early drop-off. So when you do early drop-off, you will not be staying that night. It's basically you will go and drop off your belongings in your residence hall, and then you will go back home. So there are, I believe, 8 days in July where you can do that. It'll be July 22nd through the 25th, and then the second one will be July 29th through August 1st. So those will be the drop-off dates for you to drop off your belongings. And please do not sign up for the same time as your roommate, just so that we can keep social distancing, keep the families apart while you're dropping your stuff off. And then for early move-in, you will be able to come back to campus Friday through Sunday. Those days will be August 7th, 8th, and 9th. That's a Friday through a Sunday. You will be able to come back on one of those days if you chose the early drop-off. However, if you do not do the early drop-off, or if you're not able to make that drive, there is a main move-in, which will be on August 5th and August 6th. So if you do the main move-in, you will be able to move in and stay on campus. You won't have to go back home. And I believe that is it for keeping it as simple as possible. Ashley, did you want to touch on that or add on?
No, Lauren, your answer was great. I think that the only thing that could be added is that for the early move-ins, Campus Living is hoping to be able to send you a sign-up link so that you're able to go in and sign up for the time that is convenient for you. If you live in Greenville, you could take the earlier ones. You could take the ones in the morning, where if you were to drive from like the Raleigh area where I am, you could take more of the ones in the middle during the mid-afternoon. And then if you did have a longer drive and didn't want to wake up at the break of dawn, you could take the later evening ones. And Campus Living is hoping to have a sign up for that. Let's see. I saw a question about football games and how social distancing will work with them. So athletics is still not sure if they are going to be able to have people at football games. We're hoping. It's another one of those rapidly evolving situations where they're the task force that are doing their best to answer all of these questions, but things change from day to day, and they certainly change from week to week. So we're doing everything we can to share the information as soon as we have it 100% sure to share to you. But that is going to come down to athletics and the social distancing rules that we have at the time when it is time for football season to begin. Let's see.
And then there are a couple questions about courses. I'm scrolling through. One of them, wow, my screen keeps pulling down when I scroll. Do you think the systems will go down when we register for classes? We're working on getting the system fixed right now, so that way when students are able to access orientation through the Canvas and complete those Canvas modules, that they will be able to register for classes within 24 hours of completing that. So we're hoping once everything is fixed today that it will stay fixed until then. So, and then the same person said, what fine art classes do you recommend for freshmen? So it just depends on your major. When you register for orientation, it'll ask for your intended major, and then we will be able to pair you with the correct academic advisor. And then you should be able to see in Peer, I believe there is a undergrad course, like it's basically just explaining which classes are best for your major, kind of like a degree plan. And then you can also talk to your advisor about which ones will help you in your major.
And since a lot of you incoming students do not know who your advisor is, you can email the advising email, which is just advising@ecu.edu, with any specific questions. And I believe it was Alex. Yes, Alex asked the question of he wanted to do dual enrollment with his local community college while taking classes at ECU online. Is there a difference? The answer is there a difference in the classes that I have to register for to be online? The answer is, I believe so, but I would contact advising and ask that exact question, because then they will be able to provide you with very specific answers, and they can even break it down of like, if you take this class at your community college, it will count as this class at ECU and such.
Yeah, and like Ashley said, be sure to contact your advisor with any specific questions you have about classes, but there is a course guide. I'll have to find out the specifics on where it is at, where it can tell you which classes transition into which ECU classes. So if you're taking them at your local community college, which class will it correlate to on ECU's end? And then for the, how do you know if it's like an online class that you're registering for? Typically the section will be 600. So let's say I wanted to take Theater 1000. If I take Theater 1000, there are different sections, which is basically different professors and different times that'll correlate to that class. So it would just be a 600 level section.
All right. Ms. Kelly, you asked when we went into Banner and did schedule generator, they did not show the block system. So advising is working on that, because that is a whole new situation for us, and that is a new way that we're going to have to set up they're going to have to adjust the schedules and the schedule generator. So they're doing their best. Some classes may actually be year long, and some may just be to maybe the first 8 weeks or the second 8 weeks. I would contact advising and maybe even get into specifics with them if you would like, saying, I'm looking to be in this class. Can you help me figure out this best way? But when you register, when registration is available, you will be able to see when it is. You should.
And then I see a question from Macy Wood. I see that one of our orientation assistants has already addressed it in the comments, but I wanted to touch on it a little more. It says, will the students that were able to register for orientation get a head start picking their classes compared to the ones who are currently unable to register due to the technical issues? So registration has always been the same, where you have to register for orientation before you are able to register for your courses in the fall. You will get a chance to register. I promise it'll all be okay. It's happening the same way as it always has been. And then you'll be able to talk to your advisor during that process as well. And don't worry, you will be able to get the classes that you need. Your student will be able to register. There are plenty of courses available and plenty of times available.
Let's see. Okay, let's look for some more questions we got here. We have Liz and Zaria helping us in the comments, and they are on the ball today. They are on it. Let's see. Okay. It looks like Canvas may be getting better. So hopefully, I'm glad that orientation is on it and trying their best to fix it, and I'm sure they're working very diligently. I know I was a little shocked at 8 a.m. this morning. I was one of the people this week that's assigned to the Google Voice number, so feel free to text us. I'll respond ASAP. And we had over 200 messages, and I was like, all right, happy orientation day, let's go. So we are here to answer your questions in any form and fashion possible. As Lauren has said, sorry, I am reading so many comments going on everywhere. As Lauren has said, we are adjusting and making all of this happen. So we had some questions on major changes. So are we asking if our student, is this in relation to incoming students? Like if your student has already selected one, but they would like to change it now? Because until you register for classes, you would like to go with whatever your student would like to study now. But if for some reason they get into it and they think they want to be a computer science major and they get into it and they're like, wow, I do not like this. I would like to be an education major. That's just something they would talk to their advisor about. And then their advisor would most likely, when they register for orientation, they can change their major. Yes. So when you register for orientation, you put down your desired major at that time. And it can change. It can change between today and tomorrow, and it can change between now and when you all start. So major changes are something that does happen, and advising is on it. Let's see.
So there's a question from Joanna. It said, where do we find the link for Canvas? So after you register for orientation, you will receive a direct link. It will take you to the orientation module on Canvas. And then they will log in with their Pirate ID and password the same way that they logged into Pirate Port.
So to answer Haley's question, once we've logged into Canvas successfully, what do we do next? You'll go and you'll complete all of the modules. So I believe there are 5, but you'll have to go through all 5 of the modules. And then at the very end, you will need to hit the finish button. And then it is within 24 hours that registration should be possible. Now we say should. So, because we may run into a road bump like we did today, and then we're just going to conquer the road bump like we did today and do our very best in this rapidly evolving situation and try to make everything work as simply and as smoothly as possible. We are doing our best to make sure all of this is happening.
And then I see one of our OAs, Zaria, has already addressed this question, but I think it's a really good question to talk about. So it says, my daughter's taking summer courses at a local college. The deadline for official transcripts is July 1st. Will she still be able to submit these classes? And Zaria said yes. For more information about submitting transfer credits, go to the registrar's office page on ecu.edu. So the orientation Canvas modules will explain that under the academic advising module. So it will talk about AP credit, transfer, early college credit, and they will be the transfer and the early college credits will have to be sent directly to ECU, like Sarah said, to the office of the registrar. And then you can send an official transcript from the community college to the Office of Undergrad Admissions. And then AP credits, they may not be added till later this summer, but there will be a link when you are going through the orientation modules about how to see that with your score. All right. And please let your advisor know in advance if you do plan on coming in with any AP transfer or college credit.
I'm seeing Margaret had a question. Do you log into Canvas through Pirate Port? So the answer is yes and no. When you are signing up for orientation, it will take you through the proper steps. And once you have paid, the last step is to send you to Canvas. But as long as you have paid, you should be able to use canvas.ecu.edu to then log in. And that will be, remember that is the student's entire email. So their Pirate ID, which is their last name, most likely their first initial, the number 24, and then at students.ecu.edu. And then their password would be the same. Their password would be the same thing that they use when logging into Pirate Port. I got into Canvas and now it says access denied. Ooh. I believe that is something that the office is working on. I'm just glad we've been able to get to Canvas at this point. Yes, we're still working.
I'm just reading through the comments right now to see if Zaria or Liz has already addressed them before we start answering some.
What if you didn't get a chance to finish a orientation? Do you have to redo everything? I am not sure, Trayvon. I would hope that you didn't have to redo everything. But honestly, as long as you're able to go in there and refill everything out, that's a step in the correct direction. But since you were not able to pay, I do not know. Just repeat that email for Canvas or post it in the comments. So I can comment for Canvas is
So if anyone's having questions about what their ECU student email address is, seeing a couple questions about that. It will be their last name, their first initial. Sometimes if it's a more common name, like last name, their first initial will be their first two. So like Smith John, maybe Smith J or Smith J-O, depending on how frequently common that last name is. And then the number is going to be the year that they are starting. So it will be 20.
That was my mistake. I keep thinking it's the year that they are graduating. I'm just so excited to have you 2024. And that was my bad. I'm sorry. So it is 20. It'll be the last name, first couple initials, maybe first initial, and then 20 at studentstudiescu.edu. Yes, Brandy, you are correct. I did misspeak, and I apologize. Oh, so many questions. So many questions. My goodness.
I'm seeing a question from Suzette that said, should my daughter redo her registration, pay again, then request a refund? I would wait if you have paid and you're getting an error message, just because we are still trying to resolve the issues, and students will receive an email and we will post it on our Student Transitions Facebook and Instagram pages when it is resolved. But I would hold off on redoing the registration or paying right now.
So Haley had the question, where do we access the modules? So if you can get into Canvas, you will go to, let's see, it is courses. You'll click courses, and then new student orientation should be an option. A lot of students are not seeing that as an option.
And then a question from Heather Lee. It said, when and where do we pick meal plans and what plan do you suggest? So I believe you picked that through Pirate Port. Is that correct, Ashley?
So your original selection for that would be when you went in and filled out your housing contract. Mm-hmm. So when your student went and put in preferential order which residence halls they would like, they also put down the meal plan they would like to select. So for on-campus students, there are 4 meal plans. So you have, let me pull out my hand so I can do this. You have Purple 20, Purple 40, Purple 60, and then you have Purple Flex. So Purple 20 is 20 meals and 450 pirate bucks, and bucks are used kind of like when my example is if you wanted coffee that morning, you can go to Starbucks and you can use your bucks on that. Where when I talk about the 20 meals, I would talk about like when I go to Chick-fil-A, I get a sandwich, fries, and a drink. But all of these plans have unlimited access to the dining hall. So when I am referencing meals, it does not mean the meals at the dining hall. The dining hall, you are able to go in and out, in and out, in and out, if that is what tickles you. So again, we have Purple 20. Purple 20 has 20 meals and 450 pirate bucks and unlimited access to the dining hall. Pirate 40 has 40 meals, 350 pirate bucks, and unlimited access to the dining hall. The purple 60 has 60 meals, 250 pirate bucks, and unlimited access to the dining hall. And then the purple flex just has 550 pirate bucks and unlimited access to the dining hall. I always suggest starting out in the middle with the purple 40, because then your student will be able to figure out if they like using all their meals or if they really like using their bucks, because your student is able to change that for the next semester. So they can go in, and if they ran out of meals so fast and decide that they need to have more, then you can move them up to the 60. Or if they ran out of their bucks because they love Starbucks like I do, then that's something where they could maybe bump down and go down to the 20, have 20 meals and more bucks. So I hope that.
And then I do want to add on to that, Ashley. So a lot of people might not know this when they first come in. However, your bucks will roll over to the spring semester. They will not roll over for each academic year. So in the fall, if you don't use all of your bucks, which is like if you went to Starbucks and got a cup of coffee, those unused will roll over into the spring. You don't have to do anything for that. But the meals will refresh every semester. So in the fall, if you don't use all of your meals, they will not roll over to the spring. So always use your meals first if you like to spread them out, like I do. Just make sure that you're using your meals before the end of the fall semester ends. That way, at least your bucks will roll over. And then Sarah Wall said, when will parking passes be available? So that date is still to be determined. Typically it is in July, but there is no set date yet. But if you have any questions about what type of parking pass they need, you can go to parking.ecu.edu, and it will show you a map of where each parking lot is. It is color coded, which I love, but just a brief rundown of that. So if you get an A2 parking pass, that will be if your residence hall is on College Hill. So you can park right behind those dorms, or there is a lot right behind Gateway. Make sure it is labeled A2, so that way you are parking in the correct spot. Anyone on Central or West End campus, the closest lot is going to be B2, which is off of 5th Street, and it's closer to Subdogs if you're familiar with the area. So right behind our West End Dining Hall. So that'll be for West End or Central. And then our overflow parking lot for all students is going to be our D lot, which is closer to the baseball stadiums. But don't worry, they won't have to walk there. Our ECU transit system does provide transportation up to the D lot area.
And I don't remember who asked, because I'm scrolling through the comments and I can't find it again. But for the person who asked to know if when ECU has received your official transcript, you would contact admissions. And I can look up their phone number for you, so I can go ahead and give that to you. Or if my lovely assistants would like to look it up and try to put it in the comments. All right, I have found it. All right, so I'm going to give you the admissions phone number so you can check on that. All right. Let's see. Let's look for some more questions. Okay. So for Cher, who asked, will there be sorority rush this year? How will that look if it is still going to be available? So the answer is we are surely hoping. When we talked to the Greek Life office specifically, they said that they would like for their organizations to be able to have an intake process for in order to grow their organization, but they are still unsure as of how that is going to work. But I'm sure that they are figuring it out as fast as they can so they can go ahead and get that into planning and go ahead and let every sorority know so that they are able to adjust appropriately. But the answer is, we are hoping. I just saw Heather Lee's question pop up of, can freshmen have a car? Yes, ma'am, they can. The problem is the more direct issue is going to be making sure that they have a parking pass, because they do sell out rather quickly, because everybody would like to have their car. So the answer is yes, your student may have their car, as long as they are able to purchase a parking pass, because ECU parking is an awesome place, but they are very good at their jobs and making sure that every student is parked where they're supposed to be.
And then there was a question that says, how do you check if ECU has received your official transcript? So you can contact admissions for that. Their email address is admissions@ecu.edu. Sorry, I was looking that up on my computer just to double check that for you. But just to see if they have received your official transcript, you can send them an email or give them a call.
All right. And Heather Hawks is asking, what about orientation online? We can't get it to work. So I'm sure as they just replied to you, yes, they did. But we're doing our best to make it work. We're experiencing technical difficulties, but we are doing our best to work through it and help every student make sure that they are able to go through this orientation promptly and, effectively. All right.
I'm trying to scroll through the comments and it stopped working.
Yeah, mine did too. I said, well, darn. Oh, there we go. All right, well.
Wait, did you get your comments to work?
Yes, I think for some reason it was frozen.
So, I think it's pinned. So we're seeing less and less of the comments.
Yes, I don't know.
Like a smaller section.
I don't know why that's there yet. All right. Well, if you have more questions, feel free to ask them in the comments so we can see. Oh, what type of immunizations do we need in the fall? Miss Joanne, that is a great question. And to answer your question exactly, I'm going to put back in my notebook for when we talk to Student Health Services. All right. So, there is an immunization requirement. I'm not exactly sure which immunizations that is, but I know that Student Health will love to answer your questions and be happy to give you any answers they can. One of our lovely other OAs, Liz, said she's going to look that up for us, so she'll be on the lookout for that list of immunizations. But you can also call Student Health or email them. I love talking to people on the phone, so I find it more effective when I can just directly call them. And I can put their phone number into the comments also.
And then while Ashley is typing that up, a question from Megan Vernon said, do we have to set up a campus account for orientation, or does the student email link up to that? Your student email address and will link up to that. It's the same login as your pirate port, which is your pirate ID and password.
And then back to the immunizations. So your immunizations are required to be submitted to ECU. Oh, Miss Tabitha said it's working. Well, Miss Tabitha, that is great. So your immunizations must be submitted to ECU by, let me find my date, by July, where's my date? Okay, I believe it is July 15th, or your classes will be dropped. So make sure to get that, and make sure that your students are checking their ECU email, because I know that Student Health loves to email them and say, hey, call us about your immunizations. Hey, call us about your immunizations. Hey, you really need to call us about your immunizations. So if your student is receiving those emails, make sure to contact Student Health, because they are doing their best to avoid having to drop your classes because your immunization records are not in there. And then it will cost you an extra $100 if they are submitted after July 15th. I did find that in my notes through my looking.
And then as you're going through, once you're able to get into the orientation modules, it will talk more about student health under the fifth module. It's called Connect, and then it will talk about student health services, how to waive out from the school's health insurance if you have your own, so that way you're not getting charged for the school's health insurance if you already have your own. So just make sure as students are going through the orientation modules, once they're able to get in, that they are reading this information carefully, so that way you're not missing out on anything, and getting answers to all of your questions. And then as far as COVID testing, I believe Heather asked that. I'm not aware of them testing people before move-in. We're trying to keep everything sanitized. The cleaning staff are working really hard to make sure that everything is sanitized, setting up sanitation stations. But if they do show any symptoms, there will be a separate quarantine area for them. Mm-hmm.
And for anyone who's still not able to get into Canvas and pay for their orientation, we're working on it. Sometimes somebody gets lucky and they are able to make it through. We're doing our best to make sure that every issue is being resolved and that you are able to get this done as soon as possible. So where to go? Somebody asked. So Miss Denise asked, where do you pay for orientation? So your student will go to their Pirate Port. They will log in, and then the screen will pop up and it'll have a bunch of boxes and a search bar at the top. In the search bar, you'll type orientation, and orientation should pop up, and then you will be able to click it, and then you'll be able to go through the steps to pay for orientation. As long as it's working correctly, which we're hoping it should be able to. Let's see. As we go through this, we just have to remember this is a rapidly evolving situation. As I've said many times, we are doing our best to make sure that everything is working as correctly and as efficiently as possible. But this is new to us, so we have been running into some speed bumps, and we're trying to get through them.
And then Maria said, why are some people able to register when some people aren't even able to get on? So she said, is it a user issue or is it both a technical issue? So it's more of a technical issue. So again, we are still working on that. While it is apparently working for some, we are still working for it, or waiting for it to be working for everyone before we put out any sort of announcement. So it's not a user issue. It is definitely a technical issue, but don't worry, you will still be able to register for classes once you are able to get in and complete the online orientation. There'll be plenty of spots available, so don't worry, your student will still be able to register for classes and be able to get all the classes that they need.
All right.
That also applies to Margaret's question. You're not going to be at a disadvantage for registering. Students have always had to register for orientation in years past in person before they were able to register for classes, but there are plenty of classes and times available. Students will be able to get the classes that they need.
We have, all right, let's go with one last question. Do I have to register on Pirate Port before I do the stuff on Canvas? Yes, you do have to go through on Pirate Port and pay for orientation before you are able to see it. If for some wild reason you're able to log into Canvas without paying, please go back and pay for it. Yeah, so if you are able to see it without paying, you will have to go back and pay in order to run through everything again. Okie dokie. questions?
I also just want to give a shout out to our orientation assistants, Daria and Liz. They're killing it in our comments section. They are on top of it. While you can't see them, they're doing great in our comments.
They are. And we appreciate their comments, making it easier for us to answer our questions. Let's see. I think we had,
Katrina said she called IT and was advised to use Firefox. If it's not working in one browser, maybe try another browser. However, there are still some technical issues that we're working on, so we can't guarantee that it'll work, but I definitely would recommend Google Chrome or Firefox.
And then Gwen asked, how do you pay if you are in already? You will go to Pirate Port, you will type in orientation in the search bar, and then you will follow the steps in order to pay for orientation. Miss Denise, we appreciate your appreciation. It's been a crazy situation this morning, and it's been fun to be able to finally answer these questions and share our knowledge with everybody. And then Miss Margaret asked, can we use an iPad for registration or people who are getting in using desktops? So dealing with ECU websites, I always suggest using a desktop or a laptop, just trying to have that direct connection, because sometimes some websites do funky things on iPads and on your phone. So using a computer is normally the best way to make sure you have the best chance of getting into these websites.
Gwen said, how do you pay if you're in already? Did you already register for the orientation and it took you to Canvas? Or are you just logging in through Canvas and didn't register for orientation and pay yet? Because typically how it will work is when you, it is working smoothly, you'll go in through Pirate Port using your Pirate ID and password. You'll search orientation, and then you will register that way and pay at the end. Like it'll prompt you to pay after you input the correct information about your major and select online new student orientation. And then you'll be able to pay, and it'll show you a thank you for registering page with a link to Canvas. So if you're directly going through Canvas and have not paid for orientation yet, then I would suggest going back through Pirate Port first in order to have access to those modules once it is fully up and working.
All right, so as we are rounding out our time, thank you so much for joining us. We are so happy to have you and your students as part of our Now Pirate family. As a reminder, this session will be available on our Facebook, so you can go back and watch us as much as you would like. We hope that you'll join us for our next session, which is going to be tonight from 7 to 8. It's going to be on Instagram, and it is centered towards the students, but we are here to help and answer your questions, and it will just be another Q&A session to help answer any questions we can answer for you. Also, feel free to visit our website at orientation.ecu.edu if you would like more information. I know, speaking on my half, I have enjoyed getting to see all of our lovely parents this morning and students asking us questions, and I am so excited for this school year.
And before we sign off for today, we just want to point out that we are still working on all of the Pirate Port registration Canvas issues for orientation. And if we receive word that it is up and working before our Instagram live session tonight at 7 o'clock, we will be sure to put an announcement on our Facebook page, ECU student transitions, as well as our Instagram page, ECU Transitions, and all of our orientation assistants have ECU_OA_ their name pages, so that way your students can see us post as well if there are any updates on the situation. So thank you for being patient with us through all of that. And once we receive word on it being open for everyone, we will be sure to send an announcement out for that. And keep a check on your ECU student email for an announcement as well. All right. Thank you for joining us today. We'll see you tonight on Instagram at 7 o'clock.